welcome back to the Book Connection. I am Catalina, and today we're going to do a book review. I will be reviewing Beauty and the Blade by S.C. Grayson. I recently just read this on Kindle Unlimited, so I don't have a physical copy, but I will show you the cover somewhere over here. So, Beauty and the Blade is, as you can probably tell from the title, it is a take on Beauty and the Beast, and the character that is considered the Beast is quite literally called the Beast because he has a lot of scars and he's not what society would deem as a typical handsome man. So it's very obviously a take on Beauty and the Beast, which was my favorite story growing up, especially like the Disney movie. It was very much my favorite, so I can't say I'm upset with this in any way. So Beauty and the Blade is about Contessa, who is the daughter of the chief of police, and she is in an arranged marriage, but her arranged marriage isn't just because her father wants to get rid of her like you normally see. In fact, it is a marriage about revenge and getting the justice that her mother deserves because her mother was murdered. Everybody, including the police, believe that it was this man named the Beast. His real name is Nathaniel. However, that's not what we know him by. So it follows her as she marries this man, and then she starts to learn more about what actually happened and what's going on in this world. This is a London of the past, but slightly altered with magic and different things like that. And the people that do possess magic are called talented by their fellow magic wielders, and then the cursed by the more common people, just the everyday non-magic people. Contessa learns that her husband, Nathaniel, is a talented, and they go through this whole thing where she eventually learns that sometimes the truth isn't always the truth. It's a little bit of a murder mystery, but it really focuses more on the surrounding world, like what's going wrong, and like how the police aren't really following their duty and they're corrupt, essentially. And I think that's a really interesting thing because it really intertwines with today's world and our politics and our government, and you can kind of apply those same like twists and turns and corruptness into our own world. Having a book that you can connect with like that is super important, and the reason why a lot of authors write, because I mean, for me personally, I'm trying to integrate this normalcy feeling into this fantasy world. I love books that do that because you have your fantasy where it's like not based on really anything, and you can kind of relate it to today, but you don't really think about it when you're reading it. And then you have books like Beauty and the Blade where you can clearly see where the inspiration came from and how they thought of these things. And I love that. I rated it a 4 out of 5 stars because at times I did find myself kind of like skipping some paragraphs just because it was like an information overload, and I didn't feel like not reading them would harm me when reading the rest of the story. And I was right. I don't recommend doing that, but it's a thing that I think all readers are a victim of. With that said, I do love it. It is an enemies to lovers. It is very much a slow burn. It's very low spice. It's like a fade to black situation where you know that they're doing things, but they didn't like show it. The author didn't write it. And honestly, I kind of appreciate that. I have been on a smutty spice kick for a few months now, and it's kind of nice to go back to this young adult book that doesn't have that. That's not the center of the story, because I feel like when you have a spicy book that tends to take focus rather than the story, is like you just wanted an excuse to essentially just write sex. And don't get me wrong, I love it, okay? I'm not criticizing that by any way. It was just nice to take a break from that. Honestly, for me, it really brought me back to the books that I read when I was younger. It still had all of the elements that, you know, an adult would want when they're reading, but it still had that aspect of, oh, you know what? I could be in middle school and read this. Sometimes that's just what you want. Like, you just want a nice, kind of cozy feeling when you're reading, and this book definitely gave me that. I love that she really played on the things are not as it seems. like I said, because it's a little bit of a murder mystery, so while you're following their kind of slow burn love story, you can still see the mystery aspect of it, of her still trying to find her mother's killer. And I think that S.C. Grayson, that's the author, momentarily blanked out on her name, you can really see where she foreshadows it. Like, once it's revealed, you're like, I should have got that. I really should have. And I like that I can recognize those lines in those paragraphs where, like, she really foreshadowed it. And then later saying, like, there it is. Everything's come together. And I've read a book. Obviously, I've read a book. I've read a few books that are like that, and then either the killer just comes out of nowhere, and you're like, how did that happen? One of those was Crave. I can't remember the author right now. But I was reading Crave, and then the end came, and I was like, this was not foreshadowed at all. Like, at all. How was I supposed to even try to guess that? And that's when I don't like it, is when you're not expecting anything. Or like, you're not expecting that person to be the bad guy. Obviously, I don't want you to just come out right and say it to me, like, in the middle of the book, and by the end of it, I'm like, well, it was obvious, I knew. But there's that balance between knowing, kind of knowing, and just not at all expecting anything. And that's personally why I could never write a mystery in any way, because I would just want to give you all the information. Or I wouldn't tell you anything, and then at the end you'd be like, what? So I think S.C. Grayson did a really good job on writing the mystery aspect of it, even though it wasn't, like, the biggest focus of the story. Like, even though that's why Contessa married the Beast, and why she willingly went through all these things, you still see her learning and growing throughout the entire thing. You see that with the Beast as well. He definitely grows from this, like, cold person that doesn't really want to interact with her to this really loving character that you're just like, I get it. I get why she fell for him. That's, I think, the big take on the, like, Beauty and the Beast story, is taking that relationship that was essentially nothing, that they didn't want anything to do with each other, to slowly growing to find that you actually like this other person. And I've always found that story really beautiful, because it really showcases what romance can be in life. Like, you can really not like this person at all, and then suddenly you're like, wait, but maybe I could. And then you do, and then it's like this really beautiful love story. But with Beauty and the Blade, she really tries to become this person that looks beyond the black and white. She sees the gray in between, and she's really trying to make sure that she's doing the right thing. I love that as a character, especially for her. Like, she was taught at a really young age that she was good at espionage and strategy. She wasn't really taught to be like a woman in that age. Of course, as like a woman reading this, it's really fun to see the stereotypical woman thrown out the door and be like, have this like really for herself, like learning for herself and doing things that she wouldn't expect to have done earlier in her life, and really becoming her own woman. I love to see that. It's a great character growth. I would love to see that in any character, truly. I obviously just relate to it a little bit more because I am a woman. It was a really beautiful story. It is a standalone, which I love because, again, suck at reading series. So I do love that it's a standalone. There is a second part to follow another character that you meet in the novel with his love interest and everything going on with that. So you could read that one if you want. If you don't want to, it doesn't affect the story at all. You're not left hanging for any reason. I do recommend reading Beauty and the Blade if you're into that sort of vibe, if you're into the Beauty and the Beast retellings. It's very nice, kind of, I'm not going to say gentle because there is murder, but if you're looking for like a quick read that's just, it brings you in and it has a very fulfilling closing, I would recommend Beauty and the Blade. That is all I have for you in this review. Again, I highly recommend Beauty and the Blade, and I will connect with you all in the next video. Bye!